And tomorrow, our assistant coach that we'll have a Zoom with is George Barnett, offensive line coach. All right, we'll get with Coach. There'll be a transcript of Coach today, not the other.
Okay, sorry for the delay there. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here, certainly. Talk a little bit about the weekend and then certainly looking forward to this weekend. Just going back, it was great, as I said the other night, great to get a road victory, Big Ten win, first Big Ten win, and to do it on the road and at night, certainly a challenge all the time. So I think the biggest thing, we saw some growth in all three phases out there in the game, and pleased about that, certainly. I thought on special teams, kickoff coverage was a little bit better. Had a couple kickoff returns that looked decent, and good to see Drew Stevens on the field goal production. The run game was a little bit better the other night, probably the best it's been, and the defense came up with another really good effort. So all in all, just good team effort. Happy certainly for the two guys that were honored. Torrey Taylor, recognized by the Big Ten, as well as Kayvon. So both those guys had big nights, and good to see their efforts be recognized. Captains this week, same four guys. Got Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Kayvon Merriweather, and Riley Moss. And then on the injury front, unfortunately, we did get bad news on Justin. It didn't sound good the other night, and that's been confirmed. So he's going to have surgery, and he's going to miss the rest of the season. That's obviously a very tough break, and tough for the team, but most importantly, just tough on the individual, and that's the worst part about injuries. And then Keegan right now will not be going this week, so we'll take that day at a time, week at a time, and just keep moving forward there. Certainly with Michigan coming to town, we got a really tough challenge here. Traditionally, they've been one of the best teams in the conference, and you might as well just say best teams in the country as well. Had a really good year last year, and they've continued that play moving forward into this season, so they're off to a really good start. As always, just a very, very impressive team. They've got a lot of talent, all three phases, and certainly are well coached. So, you just pick out the special teams, grab that one. We've got three very veteran guys in terms of their specialists, the punter, kicker. One's a fifth-year guy, one's a sixth-year guy, and their deep snapper's a veteran guy as well, senior, excellent return guys. And then, they do a really nice job. And this is the same thing offensively and defensively. So they've got, a lot of really good players, and they've been very, very productive, very successful. And it's going to take our best team effort to have a chance in this ball game. So it's a big challenge for us, and look forward to that on Saturday. Just a couple side notes, 20-year reunion for the 2002 group, so great to have them back. They'll be here Friday, Saturday, and get honored during the game, so really happy for them. And then, moving down that road a little bit, great to have Tony being recognized with the A&F award. It's quite a wall there. The names on that wall are all very, very impressive, and Tony's name certainly fits up there as well. And as you can see, starting a new family, young family, so it's great to see the guys as they move on in life and start the next phase of their lives. So very happy for Tony and his family will all be here over the weekend to be part of that as well. And then our kid captain is Adam Arp, a 16-year-old from Williamsburg, and it'd be good to have him with us too. So looking forward to being back in Kinnick, and should be a great environment, so hopefully we'll be ready to go. We'll throw it out for questions.
First of all, from an injury standpoint, is Terry Roberts available for Saturday?
We'll see. I mean, we're hoping so. We'll see. So, yep.
Has he been able to practice?
A little bit limited, yeah. So we'll just see how it goes.
When you came here in 81, you guys beat Michigan. That was only the fifth victory over Michigan ever for a round or two. Now, you and Hayden, you won 11 of the 15 over Michigan. Is that because maybe there's a belief system? Once you beat a team, you can't beat them?
Well, I think that works sometimes in football. If you look at our conference, I'm more familiar with that, and I think there are some series that have been like that a little bit. But yeah, to that point, Rick, that was a really big game. I thought, we were coming off a loss, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong on that. Maybe the loss is the next week, but somewhere in there. But to go up to Ann Arbor and to win like that, and it was a hard-fought game. And that's one commonality with all the victories that we have had. They've all been really tough to earn. Typically they go 60 minutes, and that's what's going to take this Saturday too. But I do believe back then it was a big thing within the series, and as far as the impact of the series, then maybe more importantly, just for the program, for where we were at that time, it was really an important win.
The numbers suggest Kinnick is a difficult place to play if you're a top 5 team. Since 2008, you're 5-1 against top 5 teams, and the only loss was on the last play of the game. Why does your team respond so well to that kind of competition? And what do you think? How do you think the environment maybe plays into that?
Well, the environment's easy. Our fans do a great job, and certainly it's gotten even better now. The North End's on the. That's helped a great deal as well. But I think the important thing for our team to understand is that, the fans can only do so much, and that they've been great, and we appreciate that. But we better be playing on the field. And I think the challenge, the games you referenced in this one, hopefully will be like that. Our players need to understand, like each and every play, it's like an NFL playoff game. Each and every play, something could happen. So if you're not at your absolute best, the kind of talent and ability they have, and I cited their kicking game, that's a good example. They're going to make field position a challenge for us, and then they've got return guys that, if you're not really good in coverage, they can hurt you real fast. So it's kind of like that at every position, offensively, defensively. They're recruited really well. They're a big, strong, athletic team, and so if you're not on your game each and every play, big things can happen against you. And the games you referenced, our guys have had a good understanding of that, and they've had a good appreciation for that. So, can we close that gap between now and 11 o'clock? That's the challenge that we got.
Is there something in practice, does that come back to, where the mentality starts? Because probably, to me, the most surprising win you had was against Michigan 6 years ago because of what happened the week before.
Surprised a lot of people, yeah. Understand, especially the circumstances played into it, yeah. But yeah, you got to do everything right. And that's a great illustration. Like pretty much everything in that game, we were doing what we could do, and not that every play is a great play, but we didn't give them anything easy, and came up with a couple plays, and then, really played some situations really well. But again, that's a good illustration because, it felt like we were climbing a high hill the whole game.
Do you see a steep curve? Do you see as steep of a climb this week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at these guys. It's hard to find a weakness, and it's easy to find a lot of depth, a lot of impressive guys. And it's a credit. They've recruited well. They should, and they do. They've recruited really well, and they've got players that play really well, and they're well coached. It's not all talent and ability. They're very well coached, and they play hard. So it's going to be a challenge. There's no question about that.
Last year you faced McNamara. Are they much different with McCarthy at quarterback?
You might argue they're better. I don't know. They're both really good players. So, I know I don't want to call it a dilemma. It's been a discussion point, at least it sounds like, up in Ann Arbor, and maybe points beyond that. But from where I'm standing, it looks like it's tough to go wrong either way. And maybe that was the situation they're facing. So, not sure who we're going to see, but they're both really good football players.
It's on the floor below us where you've got that huge TV screen. Your game against them last December is on it. Is this a week-long thing? What does that game, how did that game make you, your coaches, your players feel?
Well, none of us felt very good that day, that's for sure. And I think our challenge at that point back in December was to move forward, and just we like we do any game, you look at it, study it, learn from it, and move forward. And it's on there. We're not trying to shame anybody or anything like that. That's not the idea at all. We typically rotate 3 or 4 games of our opponents on TV games up on the screens during the week. So, and that's that. And as far as, that game carrying into this game, I think, again, same thing. We're looking forward, not backwards. But the one thing it did do, and probably for both teams, both staffs, is just give us a little bit more familiarity because we hadn't played them in a while. So, obviously we learned about their personnel and their football team last December, just like they did about us. But all that said, now it's a different team. They've got a lot of new faces as well as familiar faces. So, it kind of is what it is.
Kirk, I know you just said you want to focus on moving forward, but do you get the sense from the players that they're maybe treating this as a revenge game? And if they are, do you see that as beneficial for them to treat that like that?
It depends on the individual. Those words aren't coming out of my mouth. Again, I'm looking that way. But it is a reminder of what I was talking about earlier. If you aren't on top of things and, you give up a couple of big plays, all of a sudden the hill gets pretty steep. And when you're trying to, ascend a hill like that against a team that's that talented, it's tough. It's really tough. And then they got you where they want you. And that's so the first thing you got to do is, just keep it close and make sure every play is sound. And if they're going to get something, make them really work and earn it. And we didn't do that necessarily last year. So, if somebody has motivation that comes out of that, I think we all want to do better. That, needless to say. But, it's not as simple as hey, let's go get these guys. I wish it was. Yeah.
Can you talk about how big of a threat McCarthy and Corn are in that backfield?
Yeah, they're good football players. They got a bunch of guys, but the running back is just, he's tough. He's tenacious, doesn't give up, and, had an unbelievable game Saturday. And it's not surprising. He's just a high motor guy. So another example that you can't measure guys with, yardstick and all that stuff. It's, football players are football players, and he certainly is one.
Kirk, has Cooper's rise so quickly, does that surprise you at all, how quickly he's adjusted on defense and just turned into a playmaker?
Yeah, yes and no. Well, it's 3 straight weeks he's had a pick, I think, right? So you'd never predict that for any player, but the things we get to see him do in practice and have seen him do since he showed up here, it's been impressive. And then the other part, I think, that ties in with that, since he got here, he just acts like he belongs. And so we got a guy sitting back there. That's how I always, first thing I think about when I think about Tony, when he showed up. And it's like in the NFL, you hit a first rounder, right? They just kind of fit in with whatever you put them, So, and that's how I remember Tony being the same way. If Tony was with the third team, did a good job, and then you throw him up with the ones all of a sudden, and looked like he'd been here 3 years. And Cooper's kind of been that way. I'm not saying it comes easy to him, but he just seems very natural and smooth at whatever he does. And a good illustration of that the other night was him returning punts. It's a night game against a really good punter. The ball comes down a little differently, and he just made it look pretty easy. So we're not taking anything for granted, but he's been really impressive, in a young career so far.
How have you seen Logan Clemp step up with Justin now?
He's had to, and again, but he's got the benefit of experience, unlike the guy we just talked about, Cooper. So, Logan's been in the program. He's been a really good special teams player and a leader, and he's doing a fine job. And Jay gives us a little flexibility as well.
Bit of a two-part question. What's the status of Brendan Diaz-Fernandez, and then the other part of that, what have you seen from T.J. Hall and Jamison Hines that they've kind of elevated on that two-line, that corner?
Yeah, Brendan's still out, unfortunately, and the other two guys have stepped up and done a good job. So we're getting a little thin, but that's the world we live in, and those guys are doing a good job, and we'll just keep pushing forward.
Coach, what is it about this team that can cause an upset against Michigan?
Well, we're going to have to play really, really well all 3 phases. Just basic answer there, and every play. That's the biggest thing. So, and then hopefully we can get them to slip up or make a mistake or two that they haven't made a lot of them this year. So it's going to be a big challenge.
Coach, you talked about last week Aaron Blom, not necessarily out of the mix, but you praised Drew for his performance. Is it safe to say that he's the incumbent at the kicker position right now? Yeah,
I don't like that word incumbent, and it's competition every day for everybody, but, you got to give Drew credit. He did a nice job, and I guess the point I was trying to make, and I still feel this way, nobody's down on Aaron. We all believe in Aaron. He does a good job in practice every day, and I think right now Drew has earned the right to be our kicker, but, everybody, it's all about competition. You're talking about 2 young guys, 2 inexperienced guys, too, so I said in the out of season we expect some ups and downs, probably bumps in the road at that spot, and hopefully we can just keep pushing forward. But it's good to have 2 guys in competition, that's for sure.
Does he remind you at all about Keith Duncan, considering they had similar paths here?
It's a little bit early, but he's doing a good job. It's the improvement he's made from the spring is impressive because Yeah, I'm not trying to diss him, but it was okay. I mean, but he should have been in high school. So, but he's made a big jump since then. And I think that's the important part. And that's, I think, attributed to his personality, his work ethic. He's done it and worked hard at it, and it's starting to show right now. And again, I feel good about Aaron too. So that's a good situation right now.
Realizing that Kayvon Merriweather's got a lot of games left with you, but he's sort of the man of the hour with his conference honor. Well, how would you summarize his career to date?
I think it's been good, and I don't want to say a typical Iowa guy. That's, pretty broad description of players, but he does represent a little bit of some of the successful guys we've had, in that maybe he wasn't necessarily a big recruit. I tease the NFL guys and say, Phil tends to have somebody kind of laying in the weeds a little bit, and he didn't say much about Kayvon until late in the recruiting process, and because Kayvon is really probably more accomplished as a high school basketball player, and but that's meaningful, that counts. And I can say the same thing about Cooper. He's a really good high school basketball player too. So Phil had a feeling about him, and we made the offer to him, and he luckily accepted it. And but the point I'm going at is he's just kind of gradually gotten better every year, every phase, and that's what a lot of our good players have done. So he's a prospect, a good prospect who became a good football player, and certainly had a big night the other night. But he's been one of our leaders and respected by everybody, not just the defensive guys, but everybody on our football team.
Kirk, McCarthy is a quarterback who isn't necessarily a run-first guy, but he can certainly improvise and extend the plays. As a younger quarterback, is there a way you can deal with it or even take advantage of it? And just as a follow-up, he's a suburban Illinois. Can you see any of him in high school?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we knew who he was, and but we were not in that discussion for long, which is like a lot of the players that they have on their team. So, although I think they wanted Tony. We got one there, so at least we won one battle. But yeah, he's an excellent football player, and I think you just have to be cognizant of that when you're playing defense. You got to realize this guy can pull it down and hurt you that way. Some quarterbacks can't, but he certainly can, and you've got a couple guys that are pretty adept back there, moving around and making plays, with their feet, but also being able to throw the ball even if they are moving around. It's tougher to defend.
Going back to Jacobs, is it a long-term surgery where, like, the NFL draft potentially would be impacted? I mean, I don't know how much.
This year's draft or next year's draft?
Well,
I'm worried about Michigan right now. I mean, I'm not looking down the road that far, but he's out for the season. That's what you mean. He's out for the season. It's just disappointing.
In terms of
awful. I mean, like anybody, it just stinks. I've said it a million times. That's the thing about injuries that I'm not sure everybody understands. There's a if you're a college football player, I mean, that's important to you to play those 12 games. That's all you have guaranteed, and he just lost whatever we got left, 10, I don't know, 9. So, there's nothing worse, and then you feel isolated. There's a whole mental, psychological component that comes with being injured, and that's, I can't say enough about our training staff, not only about, the job they do to physically get people back, but there's a lot of lonely hours when you're not involved, and that's, whether you have a sprained ankle or in this case a surgery, it's just it's awful. It's terrible.
Well, if you're like Campbell, Benson, Higgins, Fisher, is there someone else that's adept to maybe flexing outside if you go 4-3 outside of Logan?
Yeah, I mean we have flexibility. Seth's been out there before, and Jack's played some too. So I mean we'll figure that out. But we have some guys that have versatility, which is a good thing. And, and Justin's played inside, too, so I think that's one thing we try to do is keep some flexibility in the system if you can.
Kirk, I want to go back to Kayvon quick. I think we asked him during media availability about what you guys saw in him as a prospect, and he flat out said, I don't know. So can you take us back to conversations you had with Phil and what Phil told you he maybe saw in Kayvon as a recruit?
Yeah, I mean, we liked him as a football player, but I think the fact that he was a really accomplished basketball player on a good team, and that my first exposure was going to a practice and watching him practice, and then we did a home visit that night. That must have been 100 years ago. We actually did home visits before guys were already committed and all that stuff. Boy, I'm dating myself. Wow, that's a foreign concept, old school. So, actually get to know somebody before you ask them for a date or, get married. Imagine that. So, yeah, I remember, Mom was great. She's a tremendous woman. And, Cam was just a very impressive young guy, but a good athlete. And, a lot of this stuff is learned. You don't have to, I've never believed anybody's got to start playing football before 9th, 10th grade to you can still be a good player. Maybe some sports aren't like that, but I think, if you're a good athlete, you can start playing football a little bit later. Sometimes you're better off. You don't have bad habits and maybe aren't banged up, haven't been abused by somebody.
What's your assessment of the offensive line?
It's improving. Yeah, it's improving. We still got plenty of room for improvement, but this is going to be a big challenge. I mean, these guys look like an NFL defense. They're big. Big, they're strong, and they're athletic. Other than that, no problem. Good scheme. I'm sorry?
You seem to have some success running a lot, probably more counter than in most years. And is that just because of angles and it's almost easier for younger linemen? Okay, here's the target as opposed to trying to move the target?
Not necessarily. Just, we felt like it was a complimentary thing maybe to add. So it is a little bit, to your point, it's a little bit new for us right now. We've had it. We've emphasized a little bit more maybe in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully it'll continue to be part of the package. But, it's nothing revolutionary, and but it's helped us a little bit.
They've got the defender Mozzie Smith. I think 55 or 58 or whatever he is. He plays.
The guy, it's like 350 or whatever he is. Yeah. Looks like a refrigerator.
He's athletic.
Except he can move. Yeah.
He's like Tristan in athletic ability. And how do you can't simulate that in practice necessarily.
No.
But what do you discuss? Because you've got such young players in there that. Like Jeffrey Simmons going against him a couple of years ago.
They're going to find out Saturday. They'll get first-hand experience. But that's always a problem. Like, I joke with our defensive guys, act like you weigh 350. Well, they can't do that. So, and then, to your point with him, he's a freak athlete on top of it. So, all you can try to do is really, rely on your technique, good technique. You got to play with leverage, and we have to be smart in terms of how we try to, approach blocking these guys too. But it's, they're a big challenge defensively.
Is it too late in the season or the process to experiment with a defensive player on offense if you're very short-handed at a certain position?
What position? What are you thinking?
Like maybe wide receiver.
Yeah, you could do it. I don't think it's ever too late. But it's not like we're exactly deep anywhere right now. It's, we don't have that kind of pool to draw on. Cooper probably could play offense pretty well, I'm guessing, a couple spots, but we kind of use him on defense right now, and it's Gordy Lockbaum. I'll throw a name at you. Last guy to probably do it, but that was at Holy Cross, and I don't think they played Michigan, so we're not going there.
I didn't think you were.
Dr. Eddie Anderson came from there, though, right?
Yeah.
Tie that in there. Yeah. And went back.
How close do you think you are to having
I don't know why I did that. But,
How close do you think you are to having an offensive line rotation kind of set in stone?
I don't know. We're just going to keep working, I think so far it's been good for the guys. I don't think it's hurt anybody. It's not hurting us, I don't think. But, until the picture becomes more clear, somebody's really got to kind of grab onto it. And if they do, then, the job's theirs. And, we talked about Drew earlier. Right now it's his. But, it's week to week for everybody. It's all about assessing things, trying to perform, improve, and prepare. And then you go out and compete. And then we assess things and just go from there. But right now, if it's close enough, we're going to keep working it. And I don't think it's a bad thing, quite frankly. Especially the guys that aren't established. If I hate using that word too. It's like incumbent, because everybody's got room for improvement, coaches included.
When you talk to Jack Campbell, you see a lot of depth to him as a person. He's got intensity in probably all phases, but he could seem to be able to turn off the football aspect pretty well off the field. Is that kind of maturity is something that you saw when you were recruiting him, or is it just something that maybe has developed over time since he's been on the
It's both. He's not the same guy he was 4 years ago, but he's not a lot different, Certain things you can predict and just kind of, assess. And some guys are easier than others, but he jumped out at us, right from the start, just being really focused. He's a very intense, without being, he's not a braggadocious, high testosterone guy, but he just does things with purpose, and that jumped out at us right away, everything he did. So, it's just guys like that they're pretty impressive, and, he's done nothing to get better. But that goes back to his attitude too. He's always thinking about the things he can do better. He's not worried about what he's doing well. He's focused on what he can do better, and he works hard at it. And he's got good, he's got a good pool of, tools too. I mean, he's pretty gifted that way. But boy, he puts it to work and uses it.
When I think there was a point maybe a year after he was here where there was some discussion about whether he should go play defensive end, especially I think that was right after A.J. Epineza had left the program. How close was that? And I'm sure that was something your defensive coaches were probably arguing amongst each other about.
Yeah, I might have been instigating part of that. If we had 5 of them, maybe our 3 linebackers and 2 ends, probably. If we had 5 Jack Campbells, I mean, I think he could do all of those positions pretty well. And I can say it about a couple other guys that have played here in the past. But, at some point you just figure out, okay, where's the best spot for him and for the team, and hopefully those 2 things coincide. Usually they do, and I think, we're happy about where he's at. But because he impacts the whole game, from his position. But I think he could. I think Aaron Campbell could have been an All-American center, but that would have been probably stupid on my part, just like, moving Jack to end would have been stupid. So that's the end of that one.
Coach, in the run game, you guys had a steady dosage of Gavin, Le'Shawn, and Caleb. How do you envision the backfield shaking out as the season goes on?
Yeah, we'll take that week by week too. It just depends how it presents itself. Right now, it was great to have both, Le'Shawn and Gavin in the locker room together at the same time. It's the first time we've had both those guys playing, and then, Caleb is growing and getting a little bit better every week. So my guess is we're going to need all 3 of them. All 3 of them are really quality players, and all have different strengths and weaknesses. So I'm glad they're on our team.
Kirk, when you were recruiting someone like Kayvon or Desmond King, do you ever wonder what the other schools aren't seeing in these guys that you guys are seeing?
No, I mean, that's just, it's football. I mean, I can probably tell you what they saw or didn't see. Kayvon didn't have a lot of, his football film maybe wouldn't be as good as his basketball. And Desmond, didn't maybe, I guess, have prototypical height, I guess. I don't know. But, and it's not the same as, but I remember Abdul's a good example. I remember watching his high school tape, and I thought it was pretty good. And we were really happy to get him, don't get me wrong. But then I remember first time I saw him actually on the field, it was just a drill, a run drill, run defense drill. And he moved a lot quicker. He was more sudden to the ball than I saw on the tape. And sometimes it just, if you don't see somebody live or you don't get an exposure. But like that day, that was his freshman year, but I was like, this guy's going to be pretty good. There's something there that maybe I didn't see, and not that I'm an expert, but that's kind of how recruiting is, and that's why, you look on NFL rosters, not everybody comes from, the 5 or 8 brand schools in the country, and, recruiting's kind of the same way. Guys pop up around the country that are really good players, so you just never know. You just never know how a guy's going to develop, and the other commonality is attitude, like all those guys had. Desmond was a football player. Like, that guy has a great attitude and still does. And, same thing with Kayvon. A bunch of guys that maybe are quote unquote under-recruited. They don't get good if they don't have great attitudes.
Go ahead, King.
Looking at the offense as a whole, 2 games in a row, it seems like they've taken a step forward. Have you sensed a confidence boost in that unit, and how has that maybe manifested itself in the early part of this week, where they've been able to kind of like stack consecutive good games on top of each other?
Well, yeah, I think it certainly helps, and I think we, as coaches at least, we're pretty cognizant of where we were at a month ago, and where we're trying to go, and it's a process. And the more you get your guys healthy, and the more guys involved, the better off it's going to be. But the most key and central element is practice, and that's how we're going to gain ground. Is doing a good job during the week. We're a little bit younger on offense, and we don't have as much veteran leadership as we do on defense, so that's a bigger challenge. But the guys understand, and that's really where that's where good things happen typically. And then you got a chance to carry it to a game. And but again, we're looking big picture too, not just each day. It's not just each week, but it's a race against time. Yeah.
On that practice point, are you seeing that, especially some younger players on offense, are not making the same mistakes that they were in practice? Maybe.
Well, we're certainly doing better than a month ago. Yeah, certainly. And getting some other guys back helps you. It helps your tempo. But it's day to day. I mean, veteran guys tend to practice a little bit better. They understand and know how to do it, and that's part of it. It's a learned thing, just like anything else you do in your career. Again, unless I go back to Tony, like Tony got here and just. Occasionally young guys just walk in and boy, they have an understanding and a feel, and they just jump right in with it. But usually it's a ladder you got to climb.
This being us playing as that high of a level as it seems to us, on the outside in terms of like how you guys evaluate him as coaches?
Yeah, he's doing a good job. He's doing a really good job, and he's got. We talked about position flexibility with the linebackers. He's got it, which to me is an former offensive line coach. If you got a defensive guy move around a little bit, that's really a good thing. Sometimes you might be able to get a matchup that helps you, is advantageous. But again, not everybody can do that. But he's got the ability to play outside, inside, and he's done a really nice job on special teams. So, you know, he's a player who's definitely ascending. Talking about guys that maybe were undervalued a little bit.
Offensively, no turnovers over the last 2 games. But how do you mix in those chunk plays, those big plays that come in? You know, especially when you're not trying to give the ball away, but you want to be able to stretch the field to give maybe that running game to move on as well.
Well, I mean, it's just. Ball security is critical, you know, and it has been for us historically. I'm not a big stat guy, but that's one I follow really closely, and we improve our chances a lot if we were, you know, smart with the football. It's a big thing, and then if you can get the takeaway on top of it, that's a bonus. But you know, but it's a lot of it's just, to me, 2 things: concentration, really being concentrating out there as a player, and then you got to be sound fundamentally and technique wise. So those 2 things. Then I guess the third thing is everybody, you know, realizing everybody's got a role in that. It's not just the guy fumbling the ball sometimes, but you know, if you let a guy go unblocked and somebody gets surprised, those types of things, that's how bad things happen. So it's a team effort, and you know, I don't think it's not that we weren't concentrating those first 2 games, but that part of that's, you know, just getting better and getting more experience too. But it's a huge part in victories, that's for sure.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about quarterback. You know, we haven't done that yet today. He was 11 to 17.
I was getting ready to leave, too.
Yeah. 11 to 17 the other day. I think maybe a couple decisions he'd like to have back in retrospect, but overall seemed like all the trains ran on time and he was able to get the ball where he needed to go. Have you seen growth from him, or is it just kind of everybody else around him catching up to where now they all kind of fit around?
Yeah, I think it all goes together. And that's what I was trying to articulate a couple of weeks ago. Like, you know, I don't know if we can get a fair assessment when, you know, things aren't a little bit more in better sync than they were. And not that we're there yet, but at least I think we're making some progress. And, you know, I think the last 2 weeks we've seen more of what we think Spencer can do and can be. So, you know, he's like everybody else. We're all trying to, you know, get his move as far down the road as we can. And knowing it's going to be a tough challenge this week, but, you know, we're just trying to take a step forward each and every day. And if we can do that, you know, might end up having a good football team, but that's what we're working on. And yeah, I think he's done a good job, and he's getting a little bit more help right now, and we're going to need to really do a good job Saturday.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kirk.
So before I bring up our Iowa Farm Bureau guests, one thing I failed to mention was, so Friday at 4 o'clock, we'll have a few members of the O2 team down in the lobby. If anybody wants to do interviews at that time, Friday, 4 o'clock, probably for about 20, 30 minutes. We'll get several of those guys over here for that.